Hey folks, back again with another vlog. This is Steven Universe Season 4, Episodes 1 through 3. So, in case, for whatever reason you didn't watch my past couple of videos, but you watched videos before that, I've basically decided I'm sick of permanently being behind on this show. I want to be able to talk about it with people in, real life, which means I need to be caught up on it. So, what I've decided to do is exactly that, catch up. So I'm marathoning my way through the bits of the series that I haven't already seen. Now, I was sticking throughout second and third season to 2 episodes per video, but I've decided that now that I'm getting close to the point where I'm basically going to be watching the show as it comes out, what I'm going to do is I will watch episodes, and when I feel like I have enough to say to do a vlog, I will do one. I won't go past 3 episodes per vlog because I feel like at that point episodes are just going to get lost. So if I hit 3 episodes, I'll find enough to say. But at other times I might do 1 episode or 2 episodes or 3 episodes, just depending on how much I feel like I have to say about various episodes. So yeah, new season, new rules. This was, as I said, episodes 1 through 3, which is Kindergarten Kid, Something Else, and Bunnies Book. And I'm completely blanking now on what the middle one was, but okay. Clearly it made a massive impression on me, whatever it was. Oh my god, I need to stop the video and start over. Which I care not. Okay. Hey squishies, back again with another vlog. This is Steven Universe Season 4, Episodes 1 through 3. I decided, since I'm marathoning through with the intent of getting caught up, which means pretty soon I'm going to be watching episodes as they come out, I decided that I'm going to record vlogs every time I feel like there's enough to say. I won't, there'll be a maximum of 3 episodes per vlog, because I feel like if I do more than that, things will get lost. But I might do, if an episode has a particular impact on me and I particularly feel like I want to talk about it, I might do a vlog after just 1 episode. I might do it after 2, I might do it after 3. In this case, I feel like individually I didn't have a ton to say about each of these episodes, so I'm putting all 3 together. I will still be doing weekly vlogs, they just won't all be Steven Universe. Weeks I don't have a Steven Universe vlog will be Gravity Falls for now. Gravity Falls, I vlogged all of Season 1, I'm going to move on to Season 2. That said, vlogs, after I record them, will go up on the Patreon right away. The rest of the world will continue having to wait a few weeks before they become available. So if you want to see my response as the episodes are coming out, I recommend backing my Patreon. So, like I was saying, this is episodes 1 through 3, which is Kindergarten Kid, Know Your Fusion, and Bunnies Book. So let's jump in. So the obvious thing about Kindergarten Kid is that it's a Looney Tunes pastiche. The setting very strongly evokes the Roadrunner, that kind of desert, cliffs, and sands kind of a setting. As does a lot of the humor. There's that pattern of a short scene in which Wile E. Coyote tries to catch the Roadrunner, injures himself in comedic fashion, fade out, fade back in with Wile's next plan. Same thing is basically happening in this episode with Peridot and Steven chasing the corrupted gem. But it's not quite a Roadrunner episode because although they weren't always followed precisely, Tex Avery created a list of rules for Roadrunner segments because he felt like there were specific reasons why they worked. And this episode does not follow some of the most important rules. One of the major rules of the Roadrunner segments was that all harm to Wile E. Coyote had to be self-inflicted. It had to be his own plans backfiring him, never the Roadrunner attacking him or deliberately doing something that causes him injury. It had to be self-inflicted. There could be no talking. But both characters were completely mute except for the Roadrunner's meet. And so those rules are both broken pretty heavily. And the reason is because those rules were put in place because basically the Roadrunner was introduced because Bugs Bunny was getting too powerful and too malicious. Bugs Bunny, it's the same reason they introduced Yosemite Sam, which is that as the Bugs Bunny cartoons went on, it started feeling more and more like Bugs so outclassed Elmer as a foe that it was like Bugs was picking on Elmer instead of the other way around. So Yosemite Sam was introduced as a character who was more malicious than Elmer, and so the audience's sympathies would be more securely with Bugs. Same thing with the Roadrunner cartoons is, in order to make sure that the audience sympathies are with both characters, that we're kind of rooting for both of them, we're enjoying both of them, we like both of them, and to ensure that, the lack of dialogue, the fact that the Roadrunner is always purely innocent, never malicious, the fact that Wile is at the same time not so much outclassed by the Roadrunner as constantly wrecking himself. So he becomes the lovable loser, while the Roadrunner is an innocent. That's not happening in this episode. And I think that's deliberate, because I don't think there's any way you could go to school and study to be an animator and not at some point encounter Tex Avery's rules for Roadrunner cartoons. So I'm pretty sure that they broke the rules deliberately because it wasn't the only thing they were invoking. I think they were trying to go for Looney Tunes in general. And so while it is very Roadrunner-like, the creature is also a little bit like the Tasmanian Devil. In the noises it makes, in the fury with which it attacks. Meanwhile, Peridot, with her, constant chuckling to herself, and how, it's going to succeed this time, but she's not really, malicious. She's just trying to prove herself. She's kind of an Elmer Fudd character. So while the setting and the structuring of the gags resembles the Roadrunner it's more like using the Roadrunner setting and structure to do Elmer Fudd versus the Tasmanian Devil. Which is to say, it's a pastiche of Looney Tunes in general. The question then is, why is this show doing a Looney Tunes pastiche? And to be honest, I think it's for a similar reason to why Over the Garden Wall so heavily used like classic black and white Golden Age cartoons and references to them. And it ties into something I wrote about a few months back about Animaniacs for my main project, Neuropocalypse of 09, which is about the DC animated universe. And I wrote about how Animaniacs was, in a sense, a severing of ties with the past. There's a massive breakdown of American animation, particularly like short form animation, which nowadays is mostly TV, that happened in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and hit its absolute worst in the 80s. People left the industry in droves. You know, shows were drastically simplified. The limits on what you could do became stronger and stronger in terms of what kind of jokes you could have and what kind of stories you could tell. And so when American animation started having its comeback in the late 80s, early 90s, I feel like there was a lot of anxiety about the past. And particularly, I think, for Warner Brothers animators, there was a lot of anxiety about the past because Warner Brothers had been, in the 40s, the kings of short-form animation. There's a reason that Looney Tunes are the most familiar shorts from that era, because they were the best. And so for Warner Brothers animators, it was like, are we good enough to pick up where they left off? Given there's been a whole generation, you know, so much has been lost, so much time, perhaps even techniques or ways of thinking and approaching things have been lost because so many people left the industry for an entire generation. You know, so I think that's why we get Tiny Toons, where the characters in Tiny Toons are literally students studying under the Looney Tunes characters, because that's how the animators saw themselves. And I think in Animaniacs, we get a declaration that we're as good as they were. Which is why the Animaniacs are presented as being like lost Looney Tunes characters, essentially. Actually, pre-Looney Tunes. But lost like Warner Brothers classic cartoon characters. And I think something similar is going on here, but I don't think it's anxiety anymore. I think this is straightforwardly telling the past, we have surpassed you. And the reason I say that is because of the character who doesn't fit into the Looney Tunes mold at all, Steven. Because Steven has the thing that is absent from the Looney Tunes, because the Looney Tunes is all about slapstick. It is heavily based on vaudeville comedy. It's about laughing at the misfortunes of others. It is based on an interruption of empathy, and empathy is Steven's superpower. And empathy is how Peridot catches the creature, which is a huge departure from the Looney Tunes of the past. Wile E. Coyote never catches the Roadrunner, you know? He always has to fail, because that's the joke. But by showing empathy to the creature, Peridot is able to get close enough. Now, there's still the ridiculous fight sequence and the falling off the cliff and all that stuff. But she's able to get close enough, and that makes her successful. Which is to say that Peridot, by using what Steven brings to the table, is able to do what the Looney Tunes characters couldn't. That you can be funny and have a funny show that is entertaining to watch, but also has a heart to it. And I think that's what the current crop of cartoons is all about. Like, the 90s were a major resurgence in the quality of American television animation. And it continued on through the 2000s, and it's continued on through to today. But I think what we've been seeing in the last 10 years-ish is that it's been developing more and more of a heart, that it's been becoming more socially conscious, more sympathetic, more and more about connecting to others and to the other. And Steven Universe is kind of the pinnacle of that for now. And so I feel very much like essentially what this episode is saying is, hey, we got this. We have surpassed what came before. This is the golden age. Last thing I'll point out with this episode, which I'm just noticing how long I've been talking about this, and wow, did I underestimate how much I had to say about this one. Last thing I'm going to say about this episode is the title, Kindergarten Kid. Who is that? There's so many people that could be, because all of these characters are in some way kids. The gem monster is panicked and scared and alone and acting out. Steven is literally a kid. He is a human child. Gem hybrid. You know what I mean. And Peridot has always been the most childish of the gems, and the most childlike. She is self-centered and thoughtless and inexperienced and full of wonder and creativity and wants to show off for everyone and curious about everything and still learning, what's right and what's not. So they're all kind of the kindergarten kid. I also note that home for Peridot, because I've wondered about that before, like, how does the bubble know where to go when they tap it? How does that work? And apparently it goes home, and home for Peridot is the barn. Which, yeah, now it is. Now that she's got Lapis there, now that she's, she and Lapis have recreated it and decorated it with expressions of their feelings. Like, they've made it their own. They've made it their home. Good for them. Know your gem. Know your fusion. I honestly feel like there's essentially nothing to say about this episode. It's a bunch of gags poking at the fourth wall, but less creative about it than the Uncle Grandpa episode. Some of the gags are funny. It's not a bad episode at all. Some of the gags are really funny. But I think it's just kind of laying out what we already knew, which is that Smoky Quartz, like, her defining feature is the playfulness shared by Steven and Amethyst. Yeah. Other than that, it's kind of neat, I guess, that apparently when a fusion forms, a room forms in the temple for them. I'm now very curious what happens, because that door was made, and so presumably the space behind it was made for, those 5 crystal gems: ruby, sapphire, amethyst, pearl, and rose, now Steven. What happens if one of them fuses with Peridot or Lapis? Does their room transform into a new room for the new fusion, or what? Anyway, other than that, it was fun, but it really didn't have much in it to say. Yeah. The third episode, Bunnies Book, kind of a similar bin. Not a ton to say about it. I do like the way it poked fun at explorers who discover stuff where people are already living. You know, the European age of exploration, when, we talk about how, like, Columbus discovered the Americas. Well, there were already people living here, so no, he didn't. You know, and all the other explorers, all these people who supposedly discovered these lands, but what that really means is that they were the first white person to go there. And that's what Buddy realizes as he's traveling, is that people have already been to all these places. That's why there's stuff there. He's not really an explorer at all. He's a tourist. But then he realizes that that has its value too. He can record his travels and give his own unique perspective on them and share that with the world without trying to claim sole ownership of the locations he travels to. And from there he moves on into, actual, creating of books, and realizes that that's where he can make stuff that's uniquely his own, instead of having to go out and find it, which is always complicated by the fact that there are people already there. Somebody else has looked at it first. Other than that, Rose's association with lions continues. Trying to figure out what's up with that. Got nothing. The male lions looked quite a lot like lion in the present. If I wanted to create, wild speculations or fanfic seeds or whatever, lion is the result of one of Rose's pet lions swallowing Pink Diamond's shards, and in some way fusing with them, essentially. Or not, whatever. But I'm sure that theory's been floated out there in the fandom. But yeah, it was fun having, Jamie being melodramatic everywhere. Stephen's pure joy at the existence of the library was wonderful. I love the gag where, Connie tried to get her information from the internet and she wrote a paper about raccoons having heat vision, which, there are ways to get good and accurate information via the internet, but it requires knowing how. And, libraries are a good place to get that knowledge. Also, books. Books are neat. But yeah. I think that's about it for these 3 episodes. They were good episodes. Apparently I had more to say about Kindergarten Kid than I thought. But overall, I feel like they were not episodes about which volumes could be written. They were just, kind of fun. I'll see y'all next time. Bye.